In its latest report, the CMHC saying that apartment construction, though, surged to record levels in places like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, Montreal. And that more than offset the decline we've seen in the construction of single homes as well. Of course, we know that Canada is dealing with a major housing crisis, so the more condos, apartments, homes that can be built as fast as possible, the better it will be. Let's bring in Iorwerth. He is a deputy chief economist at the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Great to see you. Thanks for your time today.
Good to be with you, Todd.
Let's start with the apartment construction, these condo buildings as well, on the rise. Big surge last year. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, it's good news. I mean, obviously, these are relatively more affordable units compared to the single detached, and we just need a lot more supplies. So we need everything. More apartments are particularly helpful. They're essential for people getting into home ownership. They're an important source of rental supply, and just getting more supply is really, really helpful.
Yeah,
And we need a lot more.
we need a lot more, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me as well about the issue with single homes, single detached homes, and why that's kind of plateaued, or we haven't seen the same sort of thing. That's much more difficult, of course, to get lots of homes built. You need land. There's a lot more effort involved there.
Right, and this is a little bit the concern that we have. Our belief is that high interest rates are having or had an effect on single detached starts. So they don't need as much planning, they can react quickly. And our running hypothesis is that higher interest rates had a real effect on those single detached starts, and they reacted quickly. That's why the picture in Montreal doesn't look so good, because they tend to have these smaller structures. So yes, apartments are offsetting that decline in single detached starts, but we are a little bit concerned that high interest rates are going to have some effect on apartment starts this year.
Yeah, and the financing of these projects as well, Aled. I mean, is it worth it for home builders?
It's getting tough. First of all, you need the materials, you need the workforce. The cost of, if you can get those, then their cost is quite high. It's getting to be a challenge, and on top of that, we have the financing cost. Interest rates are becoming an issue. You're going through the whole regulatory system, which can take years. So it's a tough picture.
We have a graphic we're going to bring up while we're talking to you, just to give our viewers a little bit of a sense of some of these apartments and the surge we've seen in those 6 cities from Vancouver right through to Montreal, and the unit change. And we do see, in Vancouver, 27% change, Toronto, 5% change, Calgary, 13% change. In the case of Ottawa, Montreal, though, as you're pointing out, even Edmonton, it is negative in terms of the total amounts. What's going on there?
Well, in general, what you see in Vancouver and Toronto, maybe it's easier to go that way, is that you have these very large structures, 40, 50, 60 stories. They take a lot of time to finance. And what we think happened is they got the money ready for those buildings in 22, 21 even. So they could still go ahead last year. What generally is true in Montreal, to a certain extent in Edmonton and Ottawa, is that they are smaller structures. So Montreal is a place with a lot of density, but it tends to be a lot of relatively smaller buildings, 5 stories, 10 stories. Those things tend to react very fast, rapidly to higher interest rates. And so the cutbacks have happened very quickly there. But there was also a lot of run up in Montreal a couple of years ago. And I'm not sure that they have the capacity to produce more, as we discussed earlier, because of labor shortages and the cost of materials and so forth.
Hey, do you think that we're seeing a shift in sort of the way people choose where they live as a result of the fact that there just aren't as many single, detached, or semi-detached homes being built? So people are deciding, instead of an actual home, a house, that they are okay to live in a condo long term.
Well, I think this is almost getting inevitable. Single detached are just simply too expensive. There was some change during COVID where people were going to those single detached housing in the outer suburbs. Maybe now with a return of work, they do realize the benefit of being closer to the city centers. And inevitably in these places, it's condos, rental, that are key. And frankly, we particularly need a lot more rental buildings to be built, because home ownership even in the relatively more affordable condos, is just becoming out of reach. So we need more condos, more apartments, more rental, because it's just too expensive.